My name's Robert King. I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Spent 31 years in the Air Force, most of it as an intelligence officer. And I was in 5 armed conflicts from Vietnam through the initial air campaign in Afghanistan. My first new car was a 67 Mercury Cougar. It was 3 years old when I finished graduate school and got commissioned as an officer in the Air Force. And my buddies encouraged me to go out and buy a new car. Sounded pretty good to me because my income was going to be considerable compared to what it had been previously. And one of my fellow cadets said, "You're going to be a bachelor? You're going to buy a new car? Let's go look at the 240Zs." And I said, "Great." I didn't know what a 240Z was. I knew American muscle cars, but I didn't know 240s. And then he mentioned Datsun, and I had seen the Datsun 1600 and 2000 little MG-like sports cars. And I knew a guy who had a Datsun 2000, which could actually get from Albuquerque to Santa Fe, which is 62 miles, without blowing a water pump, oil pump, any of the stuff that happened with guys that had Triumphs and MGs. So I knew they were reliable. So we went to the Meloy Datsun on University Street, just below University of New Mexico. And they had a car, a 240Z. And as soon as I took one look at it, I knew that's what I was buying. Absolutely gorgeous little GT car. Every line perfect and still is gorgeous to this day. So I got a brochure and talked to the salesman. And he said, if you really want one, it'll cost you $100 to get on the waiting list, and it should be a few months. So I went back the next day, gave him $100. I was number 109 on the list. And I ordered silver with a black interior and a stick, of course. And that was June of 1971. And it would have been a 71 model. There were 2 West Coast dock strikes. Each lasted, I think, 90 days. And you had to work your way down the list. So I was in intelligence school in Denver at Lowry Air Force Base, and I started getting calls about December. Do you want a white one? Do you want an orange one? Do you want an automatic? Finally, in March of 72, they had changed from 71 to 72 models, and there were some nice changes made in those years. I got a call from a salesman, and he said, "We got your car." And I said, "It's got a 4-speed, right?" "Yep, it's a stick." "Is it silver?" "Yes." "Has it got a black interior?" "Yes." And I said, "I'm coming to get it Saturday afternoon. I got to drive from Denver, pick it up, and drive back." We'd already done the financial stuff previously. So I don't want to get jerked around. I haven't got time to get jerked around. So I drove from Denver to Albuquerque, walked up to the car, and it had a black interior. It had a red interior. And it looked awfully bright to me. It just struck me how bright it was. But I wasn't going to wait another 8 months. So I said, okay, jumped on the car, and away I went. And I've since learned that all black interior in a small car like a Datsun 240Z is pretty oppressive. So the red was a good choice. It was not my choice, but it worked out fine. I had the car in Denver briefly. Then I went to Omaha, Nebraska for 6 months. I was trained in the Air Force as a photo interpreter. And I drove the car there and had it in Omaha, and then drove it back to Denver for a short 2-week course. I had orders for Vietnam, and I was a slightly different brand of intelligence officer, so I had to go through a 2-week course. Then I drove to Albuquerque and stored it there, and it ended up being in storage for 14 months until I got back from Vietnam and Cambodia and Thailand. When I got back, had the car towed to the Datsun dealer. They checked everything. The O-ring on the air filter, on the oil filter, had dried up. So they put a new oil filter on there, had it charged it up overnight, turned the key, and it started right up. And pretty much had it ever since, 52 years now. I drove it from Albuquerque to El Paso and then on to Georgia, where I was stationed in a bomb wing, B-52 bomb wing. Had it there. Then I drove it from there to Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. I went to missile school there, ICBM school for Minuteman. Then I drove it from Vandenberg via San Francisco to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and it was there for 2.5 years while I was at missiles. And then my wife wanted me to get out of the Air Force, so we came here to Salt Lake City for me to get a master's degree in fine arts and stage lighting, which is what I put myself through college doing. So it was here. I went back on active duty from here at Hill Air Force Base when they got the F-16. Got orders to go to Germany with an F-16 unit there, Hahn Air Base. And I was told by my sponsor, don't bring a car over here. You can get a wonderful German car, lightly used. Every car is a cream puff, and it'll be a lot easier for you. Well, I wasn't going to leave that 240Z in storage again, especially when I was going to Germany, where they have the Autobahn. So I took it over, was shipped from via San Pedro to Bremerhaven, and picked it up and got it on the Autobahn, and it was born for that. It wasn't in the fast lane a whole lot because you got to be going 130 miles an hour in the fast lane, but the Z car would hack it. And unlike any American car I'd ever had before, the faster it went, the more planted it felt on the Autobahn. It didn't want to fly like American cars did. It felt like there was a big hand pushing it down, all four wheels onto the concrete. It was a wonderful car to have at high speeds. So we had it there. Then it was shipped back to San Pedro again, picked it up, came back to Salt Lake City, was stationed at Hill Air Force Base north of Salt Lake when the reserves got the F-16, and I spent 17 years in that unit and drove the car pretty much every day, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I think it's got 222,000 miles on it right now. It never stranded me. Had always had wonderful experiences driving it. And it was a major morale booster when I got back from Vietnam to have that car. If I had sold it, they had gone to the 260s by then. They had the big ugly bumpers and the anti-pollution stuff. That my car, a 72 model made in November 71, is the choice little short window for the best 240Zs. So when I got back, the girl I was engaged to was gone, but that car was waiting for me. And it really was an enormous morale booster for me to realize I was back, no longer in any danger, and had a really wonderful, reliable car that was as loyal to me as I had been to it.
So was there any in particular moments driving that car that stand out?
Well, I was stationed at Hahn Air Base in Germany in the Eifel Mountains, and we had ice storms and blizzards there through the winter. And I worked until after dark one time and headed to the little town I lived in, Kirchberg, Germany. And it was rolling countryside. The Eifel Mountains are up and down, up and down. When you're up, you can look down and see the Mosel River. And it's very scenic. And I was driving the 240Z on snow-packed roads at the top of a hill, and I looked at the top of the next hill, big dip in between, and I saw red lights, white lights, red lights, white lights. And I thought, what is that? When I got towards the bottom of the hill, I realized it was a guy doing 360s coming down that hill, had no control at all, but he was staying in the middle of the road. And I'm calculating, if I just keep my speed just right, can I miss him? And the closer I got to him, the less I thought that was a very good idea. So I put it in a ditch and ended up walking home. And the next morning, I tormented the guys who worked for me to help me go get it out of the ditch, and there was no harm to it. But the Z-car would have gotten me home, but it just wasn't safe to be on a road with another guy doing this. One other moment I remember, my wife and I were driving to missile school at Vandenberg, and we were going across the Mojave Desert at night, which is what you did in cars with no air conditioning. And summertime, the windows were down, very light traffic, just feeling great. And I heard a noise, and I thought, looked at my gauges, everything was good. And I thought, what is this? And then I realized the noise was coming to the left. And I looked up, and I saw a green light, and I looked above the green light, and I could see the gondola of the Goodyear blimp. And he was flying just down the Highway 66, maybe 150, 200 feet above, just off to my left. That a great big envelope, and then the little gondola underneath. And I was hearing the motor of that dirigible going past me. And he was going about 70, so he was doing all right. But that was a fun time. When I was in the reserves, there were 3 of us that had 240Zs. A pilot, O.C. Hope, had a blue and with white interior, and it was perfect. And then my best friend, Bob Collier, who was our electronic warfare officer, had a green, it started orange, but it was painted green. And he drove it, and I drove mine. And one morning they were parked 1, 2, 3 beside each other in the fighter squadron parking lot. So I made 3 signs for the Z-Car show. O.C. Hope's was best of show. Bob Collier's was darkest windows, because he has windows tinted, and mine was most original. So it was fun to have other Z-Car guys around. It got rusty because it sat out pretty much everywhere I went. Was almost never garaged except here in Salt Lake. And they have thin metal and they do rust easily. So when I retired in 2002, I wanted to get the car restored. And I found an outfit called Bishop Automotive. And I met them at the car show in Salt Lake. And they did muscle cars. And I chatted them up because they had a Cougar, like was my first new car, 68. And they mentioned that they did British cars. And I thought, if you can do an MG, you can do a 240Z. So I asked them if they would take that project on, and they said it would be about a year before they could get it in the shop. So I found a guy who tuned it up and let me leave it, Peak Performance here in Salt Lake, let me leave it in the shop. They had lots of elbow room there. So it sat there until I could finally get it in to Bishop's, and they did a wonderful job. They did beautiful work. The car was stripped down to bare metal. Wheel arches were all redone, the undercarriage was redone. And I did have wonderful pictures of those on a disc or 2, and I cannot find them.
So when you say redone, what do you mean by that?
I mean, the car body was completely gone through. They restructured it. All the dents were taken out. All the rust was taken out. Everything done before it was sanded out, primed, sanded again, painted. And so the body ended up looking real good. Mrs. Bishop, her husband had got cancer and died, and then she got cancer and died. And then their daughter tried to finish the car, but she just didn't have the skills that her parents had. So I put it in another outfit that repainted it and did some reassembly, and nearly everything they did was half-assed. And then I put it in Wasatch Customs up here by Hill Air Force Base, and they're a very good shop. They let it sit in the snow for a whole winter. I had like a Foot Locker sized tub with all the original rubber, all the gaskets, everything in the Nissan bags that I had collected over the years. They lost that. And to their credit, admitted it and ordered me new stuff, but it's all repop from Taiwan or somewhere. So that was a disappointment. They worked on the car and did some good work, but I just tick, tick, tick. I didn't want it to be in the shop forever. I wanted to be able to drive it before I got too old to do so. So I brought it back. I have collected all the parts that the car needs to get the interior redone, all the badges, everything's either new old stock, quality repops from Z-Car specialists, and then there's a number of outfits on the internet that have really good quality car parts. And a lot of the original stuff that was taken off. So there's everything, to my knowledge, that you need to put the car back 100% is there and will go with the car wherever it goes. I do have a request of anybody who ends up buying the car. I have all my records on the vehicle, every penny I spent on it. If you ever sit down and total that up from 3 different restoration shops and what I spent on parts, never tell me. I do not want to know how much that was. So it's for sale because I can't get in it and can't get out of it. I'm 79 years old. I got smashed up in a helicopter crash in Vietnam and thought I got over it. The older you get, the more those things come back. So it's just, it's not fun laying on the garage floor and puttering around any longer, so that the next guy can do it. And it's a clean one owner, but there's plenty to do. It needs to be repainted. There are plenty of things to do to get it right, but I think everything is there, except maybe the throttle linkage just in the engine bay from the firewall. There's one little elbow that is. The guys at one of the restoration shops did some half-assed thing. It works. The throttle works, but it's not correct. And I haven't been able to find anything on the internet, and the used stuff is the whole linkage, and I don't need the whole linkage. I need the first little elbow. So that's not original. The clock I had restored, it ran 3 or 4 years and then died again. I had the radio restored, original radio that was in it, restored, and the guys who hooked it up said it doesn't work. I don't know whether they hooked it up right or not. There are a number of things to do on the interior, but again, all the parts are there, and I think it would make somebody a superb car. I have the original window sticker, the original brochure, all the original paperwork from purchase. All of those are available in photographs that should be with the movie here. Everything is there. The jack, the lug wrench, the little plastic thing that the tire tools go in, all of that stuff is there. The How to Tune the Radio book, the guy I bought it from, his business card, all the purchase information, etc. And I think every oil change from the beginning to the end. So there is good documentation. What I don't have is pictures when it was stripped before it was painted. Cross my heart and hope to die. You can look at the bills. It was worked on very expensively by the only people who had real skills, the bishops. And if they had lived another 2 years, the car would have been done, but it didn't happen.
I remember you telling me about the tune-up that happened in Germany.
When we got to Germany, I was warned, don't bring an American car, and certainly don't bring a Japanese car. My sponsor told me this. Well, I brought the Z-Car anyway. And it turns out there was a Nissan dealer in the village just to the south of the one I lived in. Brand new Nissan. And they'd had 260s and up. The 280s were out by then. And so the car was not running great. We had a Volkswagen Beetle that I bought on the local market. And my wife was there with me, and I told her one day, I'll take the Beetle to work, take the Z-Car down to the Nissan store and see if you can get a tune-up, which in America means let me write you a check for $350. So she drove the car down. Mr. Goodrich came out with his clipboard and his white lab coat, and they chatted. He spoke good English. And then he said, well, let me get Mr. Goodrich Jr. And so the two of them looked at it. They had never driven a 240Z, which has the best thrust-to-weight ratio of any of those cars. So they told my wife, there's the waiting room. We're going to evaluate your car. And they piled in that Z-Car, and they were gone about 45 minutes. And when they got back, the temperature gauge, which is normally like that was like that. Not all the way over, but way over. And they got out of the car and walked up to her and said, "Your husband drives this car like an old lady. It's running good now. See ya." So I never got a tune-up out of those guys. But they did drive the car about 3 times while we had it there. And I probably do drive the car like an old lady. But that's maybe one reason why I still got it 53 years later.
Right on. Thanks a lot, Robert.
Okay, thank you.